And then back taken down to the rim. Oh, great block. James out of nowhere, skies to the rim. Oh, Boyd took the advantage and played off from inside the center square. Boyd kicked the goal. Boyd kicked the goal from inside the center. Here's Aloisi for a place in the World Cup. He's hands right back up. Big head kick. Down goes Thompson. It's over.
Live it, breathe it, love it. All sports, double coverage.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Double Coverage. We hope you're still living, loving, and breathing sport. I'm Dom with the great man Source and another special guest today. Let's go for it. Sam Conrad, aka Comrades _sports cards. How you going? To both of you.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy to be here. We've had a couple of conversations before. You guys are just amazing. I listened to your podcast more than a few times. I'm very happy to be on here. Should be some pretty good discussion for sure.
I'm good, Doma. Good to have Sam on the show. We like his content, what he brings to the table. So we had to get him on, and bring the at this point the triple coverage. So let's.
Hey, I tell you what, the smartest person in the room is not you and I. So I was like,
Okay. From you guys, I appreciate it.
I know he gave a shout out on the podcast when we were with him, but I tell you what, Godfather of Data Hoj, I know you're going to listen to this, mate. You got someone that's knocking on your door. Be careful. All right, let's get straight into it, Sammy. All right, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into the hobby.
Well, okay, so I started out collecting cards when I was younger. I don't know exactly how old I was. I started with Pokemon. I was very into the games, the books, the show. I think there was like a TV show when I was younger. I didn't watch it a ton, but I saw a couple of episodes. And I remember specifically, I want to say it was like my 7th birthday party or my 6th birthday party. We went to Target to get Pokemon cards, and I saw some football cards and stuff there that I don't remember ever being there. And so I grabbed the pack and I opened them up, and I fell in love. Because at the time I was kind of like, that was where my journey as a sports fan was beginning. And from then on, it was just that I stopped pretty much buying Pokemon completely. And every pack of cards I bought was all football. And eventually got to basketball and a little bit of baseball as well. Even though I don't know anything about baseball, I just wanted cards. And at like my peak, and I was buying from like Walmart, Target, but then I would also stop by antique stores and stuff like that because they would literally have these boxes of like 500 cards for $10 because they didn't really have any value, but I just wanted cards because it's the collector side of the hobby, right? And like the peak, my prime of collecting years, I think I had about 7,000 cards.
Wow.
It was absolutely insane over like a 5-year span of collecting, and eventually I stopped. I didn't do anything with the cards. They just kind of sat in my room. I was just doing other stuff, whether it was instruments or, just whatever, just living my normal life, right? And I want to say it was around 2018. I was hearing more talk about sports cards. It was popping more up in my Instagram feed and on YouTube recommendations. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Maybe I try to sell some of my stuff, but I wasn't really sure yet. And I know this is how pretty much everyone got in. But then I saw Gary V's first video about sports cards. And I was like, okay, why not give it a shot, right? So I like I said, all the stuff I bought was pretty much useless. So I bought a good amount of stuff, or not bought a good amount of stuff. I sold a good amount of my stuff. Probably had like $100 in total.
Yeah.
I sold my PlayStation 4. I wanted as much money as possible to, get myself started. Worked a little bit for a little while at a job, although I did quit because they weren't amazing at management. But that's a whole other story at, maybe some other time. And I just started flipping my way up, got myself a bit of a larger budget, and now I'm where I'm at now. And I mean, I'm only 16 years old, and the amount of money that I've spent on sports cards is not quite as insane as some other people in the hobby, but I'm happy with it. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. So
you quit your job to pursue your content creating career. Let's say that.
The boy wonder, mate. He's the boy wonder. He's building his own empire.
What's the word? A little more professional, maybe.
Yeah.
Like I committed all my life savings. I did as much as possible to make my sports card dreams come true. Yeah, that's the type of person I am.
Yeah, now he's creating his own empire where he is going to be management. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And run the show. Beautiful. That's awesome. I know for Source, he's got into the hobby, what is it now, 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, it's about 18 to 2
But he's
18
been in,
months.
because we've been friends our whole life, it's more like
Yeah.
he used to come, obviously, down to my birthday parties, and I have been in it my whole life, not collecting cards, but not buying it as frequently. But I've got family members that were like really into it, and they're still really into it. So I grew up around it, and John used to come to like birthday parties, and my cousins used to be like, "Oh, you collecting this?" Because they knew that he loved the NBA, and he's like, "Oh no, I haven't really thought about it." And then he's just like, "You know what? I'm going to start getting into it," and he got into it at the right time. It wasn't too late because obviously the build up to it. And then I'm with you. As soon as Gary Vee started posting, like we looked at each other and went, "Yeah, this is it now." And then obviously COVID hit, and everyone's inside. It's like, what do you do when you're inside? Spend money.
Yep.
Spend money on the internet on cardboard.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
If you can't, if you can't go to the shops and go buy the object, it's like, yeah, well, I'll just go online and get it. But it's gone nuts, and I don't know. It ebbs and flows, as you know, with the market, which has been insane. But we will get into a bit of that discussion. But let's get into your content creating. How did you come up? Well, how did you create Comrades _sports cards as a content creation platform? And
it's an interesting story to say the least, because when I started off, when I started out on like the Instagram platform, I specifically created that account not to create content, but it was just to find deals, right? To follow people, to see what they're selling, to see what they're buying, because I didn't like paying eBay fees or anything like that. It was just a nice other platform I could use, because at the time there wasn't like really Star Stock. There wasn't. I mean, there was ComC and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But still, like it was just too much. I just wanted to do Instagram. It would be easier. I liked it. It was more efficient. All that sort of stuff. And at some point, I did create a podcast. I want to say it was like January. I had probably 300, 500 followers or something like that. I did not know enough about the market or sports in general. Even though I was a sports fan, I did not know anywhere near as much as I know now. And I was like, this is stupid. I'm done. And so I stopped. I stopped with the podcast for about 6 months. And then in July, June, in the middle of the summer, I decided, you know what? Let's start this up again. Let's try it. Let's give it a shot. And so I started posting Reels, which really blew up because the organic reach on Instagram Reels was insane. I had that one viral video making fun of Sports Card Invest, which really took off. Like that's what got me on a lot of people's radar in the first place. And from then on, I was like, okay, maybe I should start taking this more seriously because people are actually enjoying what I'm doing. So at this point, it's just whatever. Like it was just whatever I could come up with. I'd think about it. Maybe it's a series, maybe it's a one-time video, maybe it's a Reels, and just post whatever I could. And at this point, it's just gotten to the point where I'm at now. I just hit 4,000 followers, like I want to say 2 days ago. It's absolutely wild. And now
the rise has been meteoric, Doma.
Yeah.
Meteoric. I was following Sam from I reckon it was about 700, 800. I was sub 1,000. I know 100% sure. I've been following. So the rise has just been meteoric. He just he hit with that Sports Card Invest, and look, I shared that onto my story because it was such a funny clip, just poking fun at him. And yeah, it's the internet. It's social media. That's what happens.
I was gonna,
people go back and have a look at your other content that you created before that. So and then they see value. So that's why they follow you.
Exactly. And I was going to quickly, here's a shout out to, it's going to change by the time this podcast even comes out, to be honest, because he's, as Saul said, he's on the meteoric rise. But Sam's currently got 4,184 followers. That's probably changed since I wrote it down about 5 minutes ago. TikTok, he's got 1,613 followers, but he's got over almost 39,000 likes on his video. I know that he's got some videos in there that have got over 10,000 plays on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I know that you shared that thing a couple of days ago that you went to bed and you woke up and it was at 70,000 plays a video. That's like, and that was a sick video. It was very, very funny. When you turned off the light, and it's very funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's been wild. I was at 1,400 followers when I started creating reels in October. 1,400, and that was, what month is it now? February. So that was like almost 5 months ago, and since then I've gone up by almost 3,000 followers since then. That's just wild to me.
If it wasn't for hearing you speak on the Heroes for Sale podcast and about the reels, we wouldn't be posting any reels. So I was like, Donna, we got to post reels because the reach of reels, according to our mate Sammy Boy, it's unbelievable. So I'm like, all right. So
I can't take credit for that. I actually have to give credit to Lameem James. He was the one that actually first originally told me that. I had a conversation with him, and he was like, he told me he was trying to do it, but he was like, look, it's just not my way of content. I do better with like random videos or regular posts and posting the meme. And I was like, look, I can be the one that posts reels and post my own memes on reels. And that's kind of where it all got started. And I just branched out from there with educational content, funny content, interactive stuff that I could talk to people with, like question posts and stuff like that, live stream, although I haven't done one recently. It's just doing as much as possible.
100%.
In the end, right?
Yeah, and in terms of content creating, like we've had some consistency. We've had some great advice over the time. Hey, but Sam, you can take credit for the reels on our page. So you can say double coverage reels.
I can say it was mine
because it was. So that
means, like, when you guys get all rich and famous, I can still get a shout out from you guys. You won't forget about me.
Yeah, I'll never forget about you.
What do you mean? You come back on the show?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. I'll be like, look. You guys talk about how great their content is and you all love their little reels posts, but I was the one that taught them about this stuff. You got to give me my credit. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say.
Legit, we've seen the same kind of thing. Just talking content creator, we're not trying to blow each other up, but that's literally like what happens when you keep putting out consistent content. Yeah. And we got that advice from Buster. Buster came on the podcast. And he said, you boys, if you want to get your growth, you're doing great stuff, just keep posting consistently. And then obviously, I don't know if you follow Big Boy Movement on Instagram. He said he was one of the first people that we spoke to on the podcast. And he actually said, no matter what happens when you're releasing a podcast, make sure you get it out. Like each week, if you've got a set day, if it's a Wednesday or no matter what, he goes, even if you can't do a Wednesday, get it out Thursday or Tuesday or Friday, but make sure it's consistent. And we've lived by that, and then honestly, we stuck by it, and it's working for us to a point. And we've said it. I said it to John the other day. It took us 7 months to get 1,000 podcast plays. And
congrats to you guys. Yeah, that's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, I know. We were happy with that. We never expected to get 100 or 10, but now in literally 25 days, we've had over 600 podcast plays. So it's starting to, and that's thanks to a lot of people as well, like great content creators, like. I can name them all, you being one of them, but even having Chris and Josh.
Yeah, I mean, just having Chris on,
Like, they helped us, and they put our stuff through the Card Ladder feed, and I think that's helped us tremendously.
It's always great to, just the more places that you can get your content out, it just helps so much with growth
exactly
and provide value to the people.
Now, the ideas you come up with when you content create, I'm sure it'd be difficult at times as well, but give us an insight into how you come up with the ideas, but also when it does become hard to come up with an idea. Because we know that that's the thing with content creators.
It can be a bit tough. I mean, I listen to as much, like, if I'm not, because, like, obviously content creation, there's a creation aspect of it. So when I'm writing something, or if I'm editing something, like if I have to, I don't like to do editing, but if I ever have to for some reason, if I'm ever not doing something that involves me talking or me listening to something, I'm listening to sports card content from other people, or I'm listening to sports content from other people. And it's not like I'm going to listen to what they say and take their ideas. No, if they say something interesting to me and I'm like, look, they said this, but I'm thinking this, it gives me something I can bounce off of, an idea that I can then have just from hearing, okay, they mentioned this, but I'm going to go in another direction with it. And so then what I'll do is I have I have 3 notes feeds: YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And so then I'll write down like where it belongs for YouTube or Instagram, because TikTok's a whole other story. And that's where I get the ideas from. Like I just listen to other people. I'm like, this is interesting. I'll talk about it in my own manner, and save it for later. And then whenever I have to write something, go look through the list. I'm like, I want to talk about this. Go ahead, create it, and post it. It also helps because I have certain series that I do. Like I have Should You Invest posts that I do. I'm in the middle right now of literally creating another how to invest in like a specific series of sports cards for people. Like I did Prism, now it's Optic. Just random posts about the market, stuff like that. Having those sort of series really helps because I don't have to worry quite as much about a whole new idea because it's all really similar to each other. It's just kind of another branch from that main central idea of how to invest in a set, but it's how to invest in this set or how to invest in this set or how to invest in this player and stuff like that. That most certainly helps as well. But when it comes to TikTok, it's a whole other story. I literally just scroll through TikTok naturally, like when I'm just enjoying the platform itself. And if I ever hear a sound that I'm like, hey, I think I could use this for sports cards, even if the idea doesn't come to me right away, I'm like, I think I can use this at some point. There's no way that I can't. It's perfect. I'll send it, I'll save it in my audio library. And if you look through my TikTok feed, you would just be scrolling through tons and tons and tons and tons of saved sounds. And then whenever I have to create a TikTok, which is usually about once a day, I just look through like some of the sounds and I'm like, I listen to it for a couple times and I'm like, okay, I'll do this. Go ahead, sit down, create it, post it, right? Now, I've only had like 2 times where I can say content creation and coming up with new ideas is hard. I got lucky that one of those points was honestly just when I was sick with the virus. I was like, oh man, I don't even know what what I'm going to be posting. My content is kind of getting dry and I was in the middle of just recovering from it. So naturally during that time, I wasn't posting anything anyway, which gave me some time to stock up on some new ideas. And I'm like, okay, here's the plan going forward. But the first time, which was, I don't even know how long ago, I want to say it was a couple of months, I didn't know what I was going to post. And literally, I just sat there for an hour and I was like, what can I do that people aren't doing already? And I wrote down literally every idea that came to mind, even if it was the most ridiculous idea possible, whether that means it was too hard or it was very super stupid. I wrote it down because at least then, like seeing it in front of me, maybe in a very similar manner to, listening to other people's content, hearing one thing or seeing one thing may lead me to think of something else that I can actually use, even if I don't use the original idea, right? And so that's kind of how I got out of that hole. It's just a lot of thinking. I guess it's the best way to put it. You just got to think a lot and think for a long time, and eventually something will come to you. You just got to give it some time and be creative, I guess. That's kind of hard advice to give. You can't just tell someone to be creative, but be as creative as possible because people are more creative than they really think they are.
But your creative juices come from watching other content or getting ideas from other content, and putting your own spin on it. But I think that's a lesson for people that it's not just sitting there going, what content can I create? It's about looking at other content creators and using their ideas and bringing it and making it a piece of your own.
Yeah.
So, as you said, you might have seen a TikTok video that had some sort of audio thing on it and the post that you actually seen was nothing to do with sports cards, but you're like, oh, this audio could have at some point have a relation to something that I could put sports card related. So let me save it. And, when I'm running dry or when I need to create something, I can go back and listen to these things. And maybe from that point when you saved it last week, maybe at this point this week, something has happened or you've seen something and that triggers, and you link the two together. So, we've done that so many times. We see, great posts by people where they're comparing things, and we use it for content, and we bring it up on our hobby talk segment, and we tag the people, let them know that we've tagged the account on IG and let them know that we've had a chat about it, and we love it when people do that stuff. We'll probably do some of that with you. Should I invest post at some point and some of your content. So I think we probably have it.
No, we have. We started putting that in there. Like I see it in there. Like the algorithm has been very kind to me for Instagram. So thank you, Zuckerberg, if you're listening. But your stuff will come up. But anyway, let's be realistic. We go and search out your stuff anyway on a daily. So, but that's more of a thing. You go have a look, and and put it out there. And I think that's one thing about the content creating space, and especially for sports cards and sports. John and I you may be on the same page as us, but we're very big believers that you can all come up together and you can be a big family.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you've got 600 followers like us or 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever. It's just like, we don't put it in there. Like, we don't tag people in those posts and stuff for the fact of, hopefully share us. It's more because we just want to give credit to them because we've spoken about you and you've done.
Exactly.
So if you share us, well, that's good. You're helping us grow as well at the same time. But it's like, we just want to acknowledge that we mentioned you in the Hobby Talk segment and stuff. And then it's also for the reason of our followers, if they don't follow any of those accounts and they read the description, they can click on you and be like, oh, who's this? Or click on like Ken Golden when we spoke about him a few weeks ago. And it's like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really nice way to provide value with stuff you don't know. Like if I don't know soccer, I can tell them, hey, follow double coverage. Hey, follow this guy. Hey, follow that guy.
100%.
And they can learn about it because that's just not my niche. But I can go ahead and help them and help you guys at the same time. Exactly. We can all grow together, like you said.
And the whole thing is like, it's just educating people too. Like, there's a lot of people jumping in the hobby, and they're not as educated on the card market, and they're just jumping headfirst in. And some advice, you may agree, you are a young fella. You've been in a short lifespan, really, in the hobby.
Yeah,
you're very knowledgeable, but a lot of people your age, unfortunately, and let's be honest, I'm not just age stereotyping, but the same with our age group and even people in their 30s and 40s, they're jumping back in going, oh yeah, I had sports cards. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to collect sports cards because I had them, and I'm going to go jump here and diversify. But if you're not educating, you don't research, you're just going to hurt yourself in terms of like money wise or getting cards that are of no value. And because a lot of people, let's be honest, they're in it to flip it.
There's a lot of people. Oh yeah, exactly.
Which is fine.
It's fine. It's just it's a wild space to be navigating at the moment, right? You have to do a lot of research to really understand what's going on. I mean, even hopping in before, I would say it's a lot easier than hopping in now because there wasn't quite as much going on. Now you have more platforms emerging where people are, allowing you to sell sports cards. Certain cards are blowing up. The market is constantly changing up and down and up and down. It's just insane, to say the least. Like you said, it's a lot of education. You got to do your research. And there's plenty of content creators that provide free content. Do not pay for anyone's content. Let me actually just say that. Don't pay for any content. There's plenty of people that provide you better, if not, more value for free. So that's my advice to anyone that is new in the hobby, that is looking for education. Don't pay for a single piece of content because there's enough of it that's already out there for free for you. And you are going to learn just as much, if not more. So just wanted to mention that.
That's great advice. No, honestly, it's true. I know a lot of people, they sign up to tips and tricks and this and that, and it's just like, well, you can just go on Instagram and go get it. If if you're, like you said, you're following the right people, you'll be fine. But really, answer the next question. It was going to be, how did you grow your following? You did it yourself because you do great content. But there's one thing that John and we discussed coming into this, and if you're listening or you're going to watch this on YouTube, if you don't know Sam outside of like reading between the lines, outside of like his content creating, John and I have noticed a trend, and obviously that comes with who you should invest in and all those series that you've put out. The depth and the analysis that you go into is a telltale sign for people in the hobby that you're very, very educated within the NBA space, based on that's what we follow. So it's like, let's change it up a bit. I know we've heard a lot of podcasts with yourself on there, and it's been a lot of content created, which is awesome because that's a fantastic, and that is a part of your facet that is amazing. But we want to delve into now and start a new trend. So hopefully from this moment onward, when more people get you on the podcast, it's a lot more of hobby talk as well. So we're actually going to take your Should You Invest series, and we're going to start matching them up against each other. And as you know, we like to just talk sport, players, just discussion now. This is a different, a different pathway that we usually take on a special podcast, but it's It's going to be exciting. So we've got 4 matchups, and we're probably going to.
Wait, hang on, real quick. Is this like who would I recommend people to invest in more? Is that it?
Yeah, probably. It's like what's
Okay.
the safe one? So we'll get into a bit of discussion here. I know John will probably just pipe in and tell me to shut up a couple of times when I say, "Yep, you should buy this guy over there." So the first matchup, KD or Luka the Don.
I'm going with KD on this one. And this one, honestly, this is a bit harder for me. But I think Kevin Durant is ridiculously undervalued for a couple of reasons. A, he is going to go down as one of, if not the most dangerous scorer of all time. There's already conversations about it. And, he's only, what I want to say, like 32, 33, 34, something like that. So he's still got like some playing time left in his career, right? The Nets are super dangerous. They're they're like, I want to say 12-1 or 12-2 or 13-2 against teams that are over 500. They're taking games against good teams seriously. They don't care about the bad teams. They're not going to waste energy, risk injury, or anything like that against a team that they're not going to potentially be matching up in the playoffs with. So I know that they're taking that seriously. They just got Nick Claxton back from injury. And he's looked like a defensive monster in the very few minutes that he's gotten, both on the interior and on the perimeter as well, which is something that they need. And then also, they're most likely going to be losing Spencer Dinwiddie next year in free agency, but that means that they have $12 million extra to be spending on some veterans to fill out the depth that they do have, or like to fill some of these holes that they potentially have, right? So they could improve their defense. And if this team is even like 20th in defense, 15 in defense, they're unstoppable because their offense is so good that it doesn't really matter as long as their defense is okay. It's just unbelievable. It's the most talented trio, most dangerous trio potentially of all time that we have ever seen in NBA history. I would be shocked if the Nets never win a ring. I personally, honestly, I had the Lakers winning it this year. I'm changing it to the Nets at this point because I did not expect Harden and Kyrie to adjust their own games to, for the better of the team as well as they have. It has been shocking to see.
Shocked
and
us
overall,
as well,
honestly, yeah, and I mean overall, Kevin Durant's cards are honestly pretty low in comparison to some of these other. I mean, he's an all-time great, but he's not quite on the level of like Kobe Bryant or LeBron James quite yet. But like regardless, he is one of the better players that we've seen of all time, and his cards don't seem to really be reflecting that at the moment. So I'm gonna go with Kevin Durant. Nothing against Luka Doncic, but I think that not only is Kevin Durant safer, but I just think he's also just even more undervalued than Luka is right now, at least.
Saucy, he's your boy, KD, easy money sniper. You're going to back it,
yeah,
surely.
Yeah.
A few points I'm going to agree with you on there is the defense situation, and if you go scroll back in our Instagram feed, that you'll see there's one that says the Brooklyn Nets will not win the championship this year as the title, and it revolved around their defense. Now their defense is still very bad. But what we do realize is, as you said, they've incorporated Nicholas Claxton, so hopefully he can have an impact on the defensive end and provide some rim protection beside KD. But they also signed another guy by the name of Andre Robertson. And although he is, he's not there for offense.
You can't.
They don't need him to be there for offense.
He's so bad at offense, but he's such a good defender.
Yeah, but he's a great defender. So they're making moves to fix up that defense. I think they realize that it's going to be an issue if they stuck with the same group going forward. So this is why they're making a few changes, and you're not wrong if they can get to a top half defensive team, because at the moment they're sagging.
They're at the bottom.
That's right. But they on any given night they can easily put up 140 points easily. Easy. And that's the thing. And the shooters, they've got good shooters on the around. All those guys can shoot threes. And then you've got Joe Harris, who's the best 3-point shooter essentially in the league. And then there's a few other guys there that can spread the floor. So yeah, I genuinely think that they put it together. They're making the Eastern Conference Finals at least.
No doubt. I would like. They're by far the best team in the Eastern Conference. The Sixers are scary, but like This is what I just want to say to wrap up my own take on this team. You can maybe stop one of those guys if you have an elite defender. Maybe you're the Clippers, which is pretty much the only team, and you have 2 elite defenders. But you do not have enough great defenders to stop all 3 of those guys. On any given night, one of them is probably going to drop 30, no matter what. Even if 2 of those guys aren't scoring shit, excuse my language, one of them is still going to score 30 points. And then, of course, you still have guys on the bench that are going to fulfill their role and still, whatever, drop 15, drop 10, maybe 8, get a lot of assists, whatever they need to do, and they can still pull through and win the game. You can't stop that 3-headed monster. It's insane.
They're definitely going to need pieces. And I know you mentioned Philly there, and also the podcast is explicit, Sam. So don't stress.
I don't know if this is explicit or not, and I may have
even when they're not, we get the explicit on there. Just in case.
I'm just making sure.
No, good, but legit, like Philly. I don't know. We said on our last podcast that they were going to be very tough to beat because they're going to obviously try and add some more pieces to the puzzle. But at the moment, the Brooklyn situation is literally let's keep playing great offense till we work out defense. That's legit.
Yeah,
that's their game. And I agree with you. In terms, like John and I turned around and said to each other, like, I can't believe the fact that this Harden Kyrie thing. I'm not worried about the KD thing. It's just they've actually worked out their role within the team. Whether it lasts, time will tell. But KD, I agree with you. He's not in that echelon of Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, but he's literally one of those all-time greats that Jordan played against in his era that LeBron has played against in his era. So he's of the same caliber of those guys that came in Jordan's era, like a Barkley's, Malone's, all those guys. So he's a great player. The great thing is we haven't even spoken about Luka once, to be honest, in terms of like, should you invest? I'm with you guys. KD is definitely the better investment. But Luka, Luka's great. And I said it on the podcast recently, and we've discussed the preseason as well, and we said unless they get another guy with him, a 2 or a 3 option, Porzingis is always injured. He's a great player, but he just hasn't got it in him, like based on what we've seen. But unless he gets help, he could go down as like he'll just look like another James Harden in Houston. Just puts up big numbers, dominates, and then they get nowhere. Like he'll never win.
Well, here's what I'll say. Regardless, he is a generational talent on his own. He's been playing at an NBA level since he's 15, and because of that, he's come into the league with the mind of a 10-year vet at 21 years old. Wait until he's like 26 or 28, right? And his body's at its peak athletic ability. Like he could be so dangerous. And I agree with you. My biggest worry is his supporting cast because everyone needs a supporting cast regardless. You can't do it all on your own as much as people like to throw that in the GOAT debate. Oh, Jordan had Pippen. Oh, LeBron had Kyrie. Oh, LeBron had Wade or whatever. You need a supporting cast of some sort. And besides Porzingis, there's no other legitimate guy that I could see stepping up as a second option. And Porzingis hasn't even been all that good, right?
Yeah, they're looking at trading him, the word is.
Yeah, I mean, I said before the season started that they should trade him, and when they didn't, I was like, okay, here's what it is. Like, I mean, we know he can be good, but it can take a while for Porzingis to actually get back to near all-star form, and we still have yet to see it really this season. Dallas is also traditionally not exactly the best at building a team, right? Like Dirk. He was, the guy that like basically carried that Mavericks franchise to their 2011 title. Like he really carried them to that title. They weren't terrible, but they definitely were not the best team that year, but they still managed to come out on top, right? It's just, I'm kind of like, as much as I hate to say this, because I honestly would like to see him as a Dallas Maverick his entire life. I don't know why. I see him as a Mavericks lifer. I hope that he does not sign an extension with this team, waits a year, sees what they do to try to bring him back. And if they don't give him a good enough supporting cast, I hope he leaves in free agency for the sake of his career, because he could quite literally go down as one of the greatest of all time if he gets a better team around him.
He's definitely gone. If they don't put pieces around him, he's gone. As simple as that. We've seen it so many times in the past. LeBron Exhibit A. That's all I'm saying. LeBron Exhibit A.
I mean, in a sense,
he should just he should just come to the Lakers in free agency, just team up
I
with LeBron
swear to
and
God,
AD.
if that happens, him and AD would dominate for years to come. Years to come. Oh my Lord.
LeBron will play 50 if that's the case, because he'd probably win like 20 rings.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, probably would not miss the finals ever with that duo. Oh my gosh, they would be so good on both ends of the ball.
That'd be
It's
so
insane.
good. All right, next one. This is actually going to get a bit of discussion around it because one team is definitely struggling at the moment on the in the East. On the other end, in the West, they're the best team in the NBA and in the West. So, Donovan Mitchell or Jason Tatum.
This is honestly. Let me run through this again. Yeah, this is by far the hardest one for me. For a couple of reasons. Because not a couple of reasons, but basically they're both very 50-50. Because right now, in my opinion, the Celtics' biggest reason for struggling is Marcus Smart is out. He is their glue guy to this team. He does all the dirty work. He's very vocal. He's the one that gets in there, gets the steals. He's the pest on the team that annoys the crap out of their star player.
He runs that second unit as well. Well.
Exactly. They have no second unit. They are by far the weakest. They by far traditionally have had the weakest bench in the NBA, or one of the weakest benches in the NBA for so long, and that's killed them before, and it's kind of killing them now, especially obviously because of the virus.
But apparently Danny Ainge can't see this, Sam. But
he can.
Everyone else
can. No, he was on a podcast, Danny Ainge, and he came out and he said that we're no good. Our roster is actually not good. So
there we go.
But this is the whole thing. I was listening to The Herd with Colin, and he said something last week, I'm pretty sure, the start of the week, and I completely agree with him. And he literally said they went and they wanted to take discounts on guys. He's like, why were they not? They were apparently in the James Harden sweepstakes. They were in the AD sweepstakes. And he was just like, just for the fact that they cost too much money, it's like this whole Boston thing of they're not gonna spend it. You gave Gordon Hayward overs, to be honest. Like, let's be realistic. You should go for guys like that. But their bench has been the problem the whole entire time. I know a lot of people said Boston were going to kill it based off of what they saw in the bubble. I think the bubble was the telltale sign that they were going to struggle. In my opinion. So it was their bench was non-existent, really.
It still is.
Like, they got rid of their best player that came off the bench in the bubble, which was Brad Wanamaker, which is struggling now. But other guys do step up. But
they got Peyton Pritchard to
exactly. They got him. Who's the big fella? Is it Robert Williams?
Daniel Tice or Tristan Thompson?
No, Robert Williams. Is he the young?
Oh, Robert Williams.
Yeah.
Robert Williams.
And we said this on the pod. How is he not starting in that lineup?
Daniel last one wasn't really starting either.
Their bench has struggled. Tatum's obviously missed a fair bit, but
Well, they've had guys that have constantly been out of the rotation, like due to injuries or sickness, which has, of course, not been helping. But here's something I want to say, and this is coming from a Pacers fan. When I heard that they had a trade for Miles Turner, and I heard that they also could have gotten Victor Oladipo, but that's not even what I was thinking about. Gordon Hayward for Miles Turner, straight up, I would have taken that. Miles Turner is exactly what they needed. And at the time, he was not averaging 3.5 blocks per game, leading the league, which he is now. He was not doing that well. They need a big guy that can be an excellent rim protector and hit threes. And who does that better than anyone else? Miles frickin' Turner. And you could have gotten him on a relatively cheap deal for Gordon Hayward and potentially Victor Oladipo as well. I don't know for sure how true that was, but if you could have taken that deal, I'm taking that 10 times out of 10. But for some reason, they didn't do that.
They opted for Tristan Thompson, who can scrap you an O board but can't hit threes, and he's
past his prime. He's
exactly right. I'm completely with you. I think we're all of that same thought process. And the scary thing is, everyone said it preseason, everyone's saying it now, that they were struggling off their bench and they needed pieces. It's just like, it's funny that someone that runs a front office in a ball club, they just overlook that. Like, I know they got their system, but you need the players in the system. And I agree, rotation does hurt. Obviously, I'm a Miami fan, and I saw that with all the COVID protocols when we had all our players out and we were down the bottom of the East and they were struggling. And then when you get your players back, you start playing better. But on the other end, you've got Donovan Mitchell, who the moment Shaq called him out on live television and bagged, I think he's made his mission for him to eat his words. But he's been balling out, and so have the Utah Jazz.
Here's what I want to say. There have been teams like this that are really great without any real superstar. Like Mitchell's good, but he's not a superstar. He's, all-star caliber player, but he's not a superstar. There's a big difference, right? The two biggest ones that come to mind are the 04 Pistons and the 2015 Hawks. And a lot of people are looking at this team and they're saying this team is the 2015 Atlanta Hawks. No, they're not. Not at all. This team is more like the 04 Pistons where they don't have a superstar, but they have an 8-man rotation that can kick some major ass. Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Bojan Bogdan, or Bogdan, is it Bojan Bogdan?
Yeah, Bojan, yeah.
Royce O'Neal, Rudy Gobert. Then off the bench, they have Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles, and Derek Favors. That 8-man rotation is elite. The biggest problem for them in the past has been not having a really good backup big man on the defensive end. They got one of the best defensive backup big men in the league in Derek Favors. Jordan Clarkson has by far been the leading 6th man of the year candidate. 100%. He has been an absolute bucket off of the bench, 100%. Mike Conley is finally more comfortable with his team, and he's stepping it up on both ends of the ball this year, providing them with excellent defense next to Mitchell, who's not exactly a great defender. Bogdanovich gets his, 15 points a game as a stretch forward. Royce O'Neal is really hitting his 3-point shots, which has been insane because he's not really a great 3-point shooter. Yep. And he's an excellent defender as well. And Rudy Gobert is the defensive player of the year, no doubt, in my opinion. Even with Miles Turner, as a Pacers fan, even with Miles Turner averaging 3.5 blocks a game, I'm taking Rudy Gobert for his defensive impact. He is insane, his impact for this team, right?
For the record on that point, Royce O'Neal's shooting a career best 42% from 3.
It's ridiculous.
So the best of his career.
It's ridiculous. I mean, in general, they're having guys that are shooting career highs in 3-point percentage across the board, but most of them, besides Royce O'Neal, are not quite as drastic that you think it's just a fluke. Like it's very close to other career highs that they've had from 3-point range, right? And I just don't see it stopping when it comes to the playoffs. Now, I do think that they're probably not a finals team. I wouldn't be shocked if they were, but I just don't see it. And I still have like the Nets is like winning the finals, but the Jazz are dangerous and they're a legitimate contender, for sure. My biggest concern just comes down to, Mitchell's prices are at an all-time high. How much higher can they really get before people are like, look, especially right now when Modern is kind of considered not a good investment. When it flips, maybe it'll be, a little bit more realistic, but his prices are at the all-time high. It's going to get a little bit rocky. Maybe prices start to dip because people are worried about, potential crash in his prices or underperforming in the playoffs or something like that. It's very risky. If I have to go with either one, I'm still unsure. I'm going to just say Mitchell for the simple fact. In the short term, I'll say Mitchell for the simple fact that I know this team's a playoff team and playoff excitement is going to bring higher prices. So you still have potential to, cover your losses in the playoffs if you do happen to lose money. Whereas with the Celtics, I don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs this year. They may not. But in the long term, I'm taking Tatum. Tatum is closer to superstar caliber than Mitchell is. Boston has a really good core in there. They just kind of have to improve their bench depth. They have to commit to, building a contending team. They also have a massive trade exception and they're big markets. So they can land for some good free agents. Like the Celtics will come back to contending form at some point. So long term, I'll say Tatum, but right now I'd probably say Mitchell between these two guys.
Completely agree. Source, in agreement with that?
Yeah, I've got to agree with it. There's one note that I want people to just be mindful, and Sam mentioned it, is his cards are all-time high now. I'm just talking about his Prism base card, Donovan Mitchell, PSA 10.
What is it?
He's last sold was $590, but it did reach up to above $600. So that was the first time.
What's his raw going for? Can you find that? I can find that out, but I'll do it in a sec. But just be mindful that card's had a run up, the Prism card. Maybe there's opportunity to have a look at some other sets and that maybe haven't caught up yet to the rise. We've seen that
Modern was down, but if you have a look at Mitchell's card over the last 2 weeks, according to the data provided by Card Ladder, it's actually up 43% in the last 2 weeks, the PSA 10 Prism card. So although there might still be some opportunity, I think you should be trying to maybe look towards the Optic set or potentially the Select and see if there's opportunity in either of those sets, because as Sam did mention, the Prism card is at an all-time high. So how much higher it can go from here, he'd have to have significant success leading, stay on this, obviously not get injured, because if he gets injured, well, we know what's going to happen, and stay fit, make it to the playoffs, and make it to the conference finals for it to go up to 1,200 and double. So that you got to be realistic. So you just think about those aspects, because that's essentially what needs to happen for that card to jump a significant amount. So maybe as I said, maybe it's buying not the Prism card, but buying another set that hasn't sort of caught the hype yet, and then getting into Mitchell. Or on the other aspect, as he said, was buying Tatum for the longer term. Maybe it's a good opportunity now to possibly buy some Tatum. You'll have to do your research. Always research. Use the great tools that we've got. Thank you to cardladder.com and 130 Point, looking up previous solds and finding out where's a good opportunity. But yeah, I agree with what he said. I think Tatum's the better longer-term prospect. Not only in cards does it matter about the player themselves, but it matters about the market that they're in. And he's in Boston, so that's a big factor as well.
He'll be playing for your boys in probably 3-4 years time anyway, so he'll be at the Lakers. That's my call. I don't reckon he's going to be in Boston his whole career.
Oh man,
everyone's going to be there.
Everyone come to the Lakers.
Everyone's going to LA.
LeBron. Everyone's going to say LeBron's just going to be like, I'll be the only guy that comes off the bench. Who cares? That's what he's going to do.
He'll be like 50 years old, just like, come on guys, I'll come off the bench, but you got to promise that you'll come to LA. Come on,
exactly
let's go.
Exactly right. Next one, we've got 2 left here. This Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that out-careered his career best season, I had to put him in because I know Sauce loves talking about this bloke when I'm on any podcast with him. Jaylen Brown or Trae Young?
This is honestly, I said that Mitchell and Tatum was harder, and it is, but this is honestly still pretty hard as well. I didn't really think about it. Here's my thing. I personally am not a big Trae Young fan. I've got a lot of issues with him. But I'm honestly, for the short term, I'm going to say Trae Young. Because his prices are way down. The team has had a pretty good amount of injuries. And I do think that this team is probably playoff caliber, especially with the amount of disappointing teams that there are in the Eastern Conference. I think it should be relatively easy for them. Not easy, but they should have a good chance to at least make it into the playoffs as a 6th through 8th seed, right? So like there's that. My issue with Brown is just the simple fact that he's in Boston for, I believe, 3 more years. I think that's how many years he has left on his contract, and Tatum's going to be there for 5. He will always be overshadowed by Tatum unless he has a full season where he is just miles better than Tatum. And I really don't know if that's going to happen. I doubt it does. It's going to take a lot of work, and I'm not going to say it never can. But I think he's just going to be overshadowed by Tatum for the simple fact that the media likes Tatum more than they like Brown. Brown is not quite as flashy or quite as he's never been quite as hyped up as Tatum has been, and that's just always going to be holding him back a little bit. For the short term, I'd say Trae, and potentially for the longer term as well, because he's just that flashy player that everyone loves. And I hate to say that because I really don't like the guy's future. I'm not 100% sure if he's a winning player. I hope that eventually the NBA makes a rule change for jumping into defenders to draw the foul, which, I mean, he's not the only one that does, right? I mean, Harden started out with drawing fouls like that in the first place. Luka Doncic does the same thing now. And then Trae Young is just the one that is more notable. He doesn't play good defense whatsoever. And if he's not taking a lot of free throws, then he does struggle a pretty good amount. So I have my reservations about the guy, but I'm going to go with Trae in both of those situations. Although I think that neither of them is an excellent investment really, like, I think that you're taking a pretty large risk with both of those guys for the reasons that I just mentioned.
Yep, I completely agree. Jalen Brown at the moment is more the one if they were inclined to invest in because he's just dominating. But I think I wouldn't invest though because his prices will be at an all-time high because he's played so well. So I don't know. I'm the same. I wouldn't touch either of them. I'd be very wary. And the good thing about Brown though, he is kind of. I know he's overshadowed as you said, but he's kind of that complete guy. He plays defense.
He does it all. He plays.
He does it all. He does. He definitely does. Where I completely agree with you on Trey. He's very limited in what he can and can't do. If he's not at the line, if he's not jacking up threes, he plays zero defense. So and as they say in the NBA, the hardest position to guard is his position, the 1 and the 2, because they score so prolifically now compared to what it was 20 years ago. So if you can't D up your position when you're coming up against the guy, even guys that struggle defensively, you got to be able to defend Kyrie Irving and all these guys. Let's be honest, Luka, when he's coming down the court, he's pretty much the point guard. Unfortunately for Trey, he's got to even face guys like LeBron in there. But even guys like Dennis Schroeder, like they got great output offensively in that position. And if you're struggling, you're just going to get beaten every time, and you get abused, especially with the pick and roll. They just switch so many matchups these days in the NBA to just literally expose the limited defenders in teams. So if I was going to go with either, it would be Brown, but I would suggest the same as yourself. I would not invest in either at the moment.
Yeah, I want to mention 2 things real quick, just real fast. One of the biggest reasons that I hate Trae Young, and honestly, none of this stuff is his fault. Really, he's just taking advantage of the weakness in the NBA system of jumping into players, and they'll call it a foul, right? And another one is he came into the league with people calling him Steph Curry, and I hate that comparison because it is really so dumb. That is a terrible comparison in my opinion. But he's not the one that was like, hey, compare me to Steph Curry. He didn't ask for that, right? So like, I can't hate the guy himself. I hate the people that call him Steph Curry and stuff like that for a couple of reasons. A, he is nowhere near as efficient as Steph Curry is. And I think for his career, Steph shoots over 40%. And Trey has had not multiple games, but in both seasons, he has not shot 40% or higher ever. But then one other thing, Steph Curry works so well off ball as well, and Trae Young does not do that. Steph is constantly running around the court if he does not have the ball in his hands, running around screens, getting into the lane, doing whatever he has to do to get open, and then knocking down a 3 with one of the fastest jump shots that we have ever seen. That is not a good comparison. Please stop doing that. Yeah. And just one thing I want to mention about Brown, I don't know what made me think of this or what has made me think of this, but whenever I watch Jalen Brown or whenever I watch Mikal Bridges play, I see 2 very similar players. I have no idea what it is, but whenever I watch Mikal Bridges on the court, I see Jalen Brown when he was relatively young. He's still young, but when he was in his first couple of years in the NBA. So maybe you want to take a wild shot, pick up a Mikal Bridges silver PSA 10 and just hold on to it just because of a gut feeling of mine. But, I mean, I just wanted to mention that because for any Mikal Bridges fans out there, for some reason, I think that they're going to be pretty similar players once it's all said and done. So I don't know why I wanted to say that, but
I would look at his contract situation first of all, Mikal Bridges, and just see where it's at, whether it's opportunity for him to move away from Phoenix, because at the current setup at Phoenix, he's not going to get the opportunity to shine, to see his cards get that jump up that you may want if you're looking at an opportunity to potentially flip. So if you're a Mikal Bridges fan and you're a collector, I mean, it doesn't really matter because you're a collector of Mikal Bridges. Just like me, like I'm a collector of SGA, doesn't really matter at this point. But, you know, there was a reason why I chose some of the players to collect, and that was because I believe in their current situation, it gives them the most opportunity to shine. And you know, SGA was one for me, and Jaren Jackson was another one where he's the number 2 guy on that team with Ja Morant, and that team doesn't have the success that it could potentially have without Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant, you know, firing in tandem. So that's when I look at things and which guys that I'm going to buy and hold for the long term, it has to be guys that are going to be that 1-2 option on their team, and they're going to have the most opportunity to shine. So back to the original point, I think funny enough, I bought up the compare data on Card Ladder, and I've got it over the last 6 months, and the as of the 27th of January, the compare data crossed over, and Jaylen Brown actually went on top of Trae Young. And I think this has a lot to do with him having a career year, Trae Young being a little bit underwhelming, and that Hawks lineup being a little bit underwhelming from what people thought they could potentially do after making some moves. But it seems to be that they've picked up a couple of Fabergé eggs. They're a bit delicate. They can't quite stay on the court. In Gallinari, and we're seeing with Rondo, he's always got back issues and things like that. So, it's I'm with Sam on that point. I think it's a tough one to say. I think in the short term, potentially Jaylen Brown, because I think they might have some better playoff success, and you might be able, you should be able to flip his card pre-playoffs for some profit. If they're making it and there's some hype building into it. But the longer term, I think I'm still gonna go. I think I'm still gonna go with Trae Young, and that's just because where Trae Young is, what he's viewed in the hobby. I don't know. People got this infatuation with him. As he said, trying to compare him to Steph Curry, although he's not anything like Steph Curry. The only thing he's like Steph Curry is that he shoots really far away from the basket.
Yeah.
But Damian Lillard does that, and I regard Damian Lillard a hell of a lot better player than Trae Young. So, I think that's I've got to agree on that point.
Perfect. All right, lucky last one. Your boy Sauce, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA, or Ja Morant?
I like this one. Two very fun players to watch. First of all, Ja Morant is just an athletic freak. He's got some major bounce. He gets up there. He's had multiple excellent dunks or multiple close dunks in his career that could have been, ruining some guys' reputations on the NBA court. And then we got SGA, who's just a very, very shifty player. He's kind of broken out as of recently. He's just kind of just a silky smooth guy that nobody ever really expected. And he goes out there and he just plays well. I just really like SGA a lot, both as a person and as an NBA player. So, I have a little bit of bias towards him. In the short term, I'll say both of them, honestly. Either one works. While my biggest issue with SGA is that the Thunder are going to be terrible for like 1 or 2 more years, his stuff is literally at nearly all-time lows. And he is nearly an all-star caliber player right now, and he will probably continue to be so for most of his career. And considering that stuff is literally at all-time lows, you might as well pick up a Prism Silver like PSA 10 or PSA 9 if you can. Because even though that's typically, in my opinion, more of a short-term play, you can still sell that down the line because it's so cheap right now that even if it does go up in the short term and then go down a little bit, you're still probably going to come out with profit. Because it's just so cheap already. And then with Ja Morant, they're going to be winning more games, or he's going to be experiencing more winning seasons in the short term than SGA will. Jaren Jackson Jr. hasn't even come back yet. Desmond Bane is an amazing 3-and-D defender. They have Jonas Valanciunas, although maybe they let him go in free agency, sign some other guys, and let Brandon Clark slip in to fulfill that role. But for now, Brandon Clark is a nice third or fourth option who's also great off the bench, or potentially, even though we haven't seen it a ton, play him at the small forward position. And Dylan Brooks is incredibly underrated as a third option. Honestly, he puts in a solid 15 points a game or something like that very quietly. And he's a pretty efficient player as well. So I like that for them. They have a nice young core. Over time, they're just gonna continue to get better. The biggest issue for Ja Morant is that in Memphis, he's not going to experience winning because the chances of them landing a big free agent are very small. So if he does experience winning in the future, they're going to have to work through the draft or something like that, or manage to sign a free agent that somehow goes unnoticed and just breaks out or something like that. And the chances of that happening are rare. Now, he is on his rookie deal. So if he does want to leave Memphis, he totally can. But I don't really think that he wants to at the moment because they do have a nice looking future. But in my opinion, the future is a little bit more rocky than people might expect. Long term, I'm going Shea Gilgeous-Alexander all the way, 100,000%, no doubt. I'm going with him. The Thunder have, I believe, 17 first-round picks in the next few years, right, which is insane. And you could say, hey, they could work through the draft, which, of course, they can. They can work through the draft a bunch of young guys and just build a dynasty, which is certainly possible. And, of course, if that happens, his prices are going to be insane because they're going to be one of the best teams in the NBA. But they could also take those first-round picks and they could make a trade to land a superstar. It cost 8 first-round picks to get James Harden. Well, they have enough picks to get 2 James Hardens in OKC, right? They could do that. They have enough picks to throw at someone in order to land a superstar caliber player, and all of a sudden become contenders overnight if they really want to. So like I mean that's just ridiculous. But then I mean even then they still also have a really nice young core already. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Darius Bazley's pretty nice.
Dort.
I love Lou Dort, and then they also have that very very raw project. I don't know how to say his name. I'm gonna just try it. They're like Alexei Poku's something. I call him Poku.
He's European.
He's just this massive, like 7'3" type guy. He's very similar to Bol Bol, although even skinnier. With some pretty high potential. It's just a matter of developing his skills, right? So they have a nice young roster already. Over time, they're going to continue to improve as a team and put pieces around this core that they currently have. And at some point, this team is just going to be unstoppable, in my opinion, if they make the right moves, I guess. So that's my pick.
I agree. Sauce, where are you going with it? You're going to go with it.
You don't have to ask me.
Yeah.
Like I mean, for the record, I've got both guys. I've got cards of both players because I think they're both great, phenomenal young talents. So I think if you're and ahhing, flip a coin and choose one. But personally, I veered towards SGA, and if anyone follows me, I've got quite decent. What I'd say one of my bigger collections of players would be SGA. I don't know if you scroll through the realms of Instagram, I've also been quoted saying that SGA will have a better career than Ja Morant, and I've gone down on record saying that. So here I am going down on record saying that again. And I just think SGA has. Look, they're very similar because they play the same position and they're both silky smooth. I think Ja Morant definitely has more athleticism, but I think SGA is one of those guys. He's crafty. He's got long, ball handling, lengthy. He's got good ball handling. I think with the situation he's in, where he's been thrusted into the spotlight essentially, and he had a year under a top 10 point guard and had a year to learn a lot from someone like Chris Paul, which I'm sure he has. And not only will Chris Paul obviously teach you the game, but what he would learn a lot of Chris Paul is leadership. And that's what he needs to develop himself, is that leadership, because that's where he's going to be able to not only take his game, because I feel like he's got it in him to take his game to that next level already. We've seen him drop 42 points just the other day. I mean, I think he at some point in his career can easily quite average, 27 plus in his career. I mean, at the moment, I think he's averaging like 24 or something around that. But I'm an SGA fan, so I'm gonna say SGA, and I'm biased. But another note that I want to say before we move on off the OKC is, Conrad, we said Dort, right? Luguentz Dort. Mm. Now I've sort of likened Luguentz Dort a little bit to Jimmy Butler in the early parts of his career, where he wasn't really. Jimmy Butler wasn't known for his offense. He was defensive beast. And Luguentz Dort is very good on the defensive end. Very good. So I think he has the ability to develop his game, and maybe at some point he becomes another version of Jimmy Butler, which, if he gets to that point in his career, that's nothing to be ashamed of. That's for sure. Jimmy Butler's a great player. So I think that could be his ceiling. I genuinely think that he could get to that level where he's able to, shoot decent enough, and maybe average 20 points a game.
Yeah. He was the number one option in college, and he's a solid 3-point shooter. He's actually not bad this year. Much better than I personally expected. I was expecting a way below average season from him, but he's not doing bad whatsoever for considering my expectations. I do agree that his ceiling could be that high. I just don't know if he actually reaches it. I think that he'll be like a good player, no doubt. I didn't watch enough college film of him or anything like that, right? I haven't seen enough from him in the NBA because obviously he hasn't had a ton of opportunity in the NBA, or doesn't take enough shots to really give me enough insight as to where his projection or career trajectory, that's what I meant to say. His career trajectory could potentially go. So maybe he surprises me and he does turn into a Jimmy Butler type. I see him as like a nice, really nice, not 3-and-D wing, but a nice offensive option as far as the wing goes, with a lot of ability to get inside and get to the basket because he's just this really strong dude.
Yeah, he's strong.
And just provides some elite defense as well. Especially for Shea, who's not exactly a good defender. He can be a nice, solid defensive option in the backcourt as well. So, I don't know for sure just because I haven't seen enough from him, but I agree. He's got some of that potential, possibly for his career.
Look, and I always say, excuse me, the big thing is he's getting opportunity. He's playing 30+ minutes a game, right? Now, I would rather be looking at a guy that's getting 30+ minutes a game than a guy that's literally getting 5 minutes a game and 7 minutes a game. How are you supposed to judge someone on what they can do off 5-7 minutes a game? Like, you really can't. At least Luguentz-Dort is getting court time. I mean, he played massive minutes in the playoffs last year. Troubled James Harden tremendously in that series, if everyone remembers.
He did.
And
points in Game 7.
And that's his rookie season. Like, you're troubling James Harden, you're a rookie. Like, I think there's so much growth in this guy. He's 21 years old. Right, let's just not forget that. He's 21 years old, and look how much of a unit he is already. Like, he literally looks like he's been in the NBA for 5 seasons already. He's got that much shoulder mass around his upper body. It's ridiculous.
He's a linebacker in the NFL.
Yeah, there you go.
Literally. If I had to choose between these two, I may surprise Saucy a bit here, but I'm actually going to pick SGA. I just think Ja Morant's success at the moment is dependent on Jaren Jackson Jr. I'm being dead serious. As you said before, their tandem is unbelievable when they're together. I don't know we don't know how Jaren Jackson's going to look when he comes back from this injury now. A big man with knee injuries. Hopefully, it's all good because he is a great player. You can make an argument that he can potentially push to be the better player in the team, Jaren Jackson Jr. I just think Ja Morant takes a bit of that limelight from him because of the type of player that he is. I think Morant really hasn't recovered 150% from that injury.
I agree.
This is a guy that was averaging 40 before he did get hurt. I know it was within like 4 games. I completely understand that, but he found it so much easier to score compared to when he's come back. His percentage has gone down, I'm pretty sure, a fair bit compared to pre-injury. They're both going to have great careers. I think SGA, the reason why it's SGA, because he's the leader of that team. And I completely agree before one of you was saying Chris Paul, he would have learned so much from Chris Paul last year for his development, not because he's got the utilities as a basketball player skill-wise. It's just, as I think it was useless, that leadership quality, you've learned from one of the best to ever do it. Honestly, Chris Paul as a leader, and he's just so intense to get the best out of his teammates. That's his next step. If he can transition that leadership into his game fully, he's going to be one of the, I'm not going to say all-time greats, but one of the greats to play basketball. It potentially could be a top 50 player ever. Yeah. You never know. He can score. He can play. He's good. He's very good. Yeah. And I agree with what you said, Sam. For the way that he's playing, his card prices are
Low. They shouldn't be dipping.
Low.
Yep.
So my invest is definitely a SGA over Ja Morant.
Yeah.
It's also
I agree.
fell off his chair.
I did almost fall off
You
my chair
shot.
because we've gone back and forth over who's going to be the guy out of that draft, Zion or Ja Morant, who's it going to be, and I'm all Zion. I'm like Zion. I don't care what you tell me. You can't tell me anything else. I've watched what's he played 55 games. I reckon I've watched not every single game, but I reckon I've watched a good 40 of his career games thus far. Especially I watched the one the other yesterday, against the Bucks. I mean, the guy was literally taking Giannis off the dribble from the 3-point line and beating him to the rack and finishing. He took Giannis off the dribble, dude.
He's Shaq type dominant. What? He's Shaq dominant. He's unbelievable.
And I said to Doma, I said, Zion's first step dribble, left or right, is the most explosive in the NBA, and no one else even comes close. I mean, LeBron is a close second, but Zion is more explosive off that first step than LeBron. I don't care what you tell me. Like, it's scary how good he is. And the thing is, he just gets to the rack at will now because he can. It's not like he can't shoot jump shots. Like, he can shoot jump shots. We've seen it in college. We've seen it freaking in his debut game. He knocked 3 threes in a row, 4 threes, and then Alvin Gentry at the time didn't want to take him out of the game. So he's already got it. He's got more of a 3-point shot than freaking Ben Simmons, and he's been in the league for 3 years. So
I'm glad it was
out of him, please.
I'm glad that it was SJ and Morant because it could have been Zion and Morant, and I think you're honestly, Source, the answer I could have given there, if you fell off your chair with the SGA one, you probably would have jumped out your window in disbelief. So I haven't gone on record I haven't said anything. I haven't gone on record between Morant and Zion. Everyone knows my stance at the moment. Until it gets brought up at a later date, and there's going to be an argument with me, there may not be an argument anymore. That's all I'm saying. But I'm not going on record. I ain't saying shit. All right. So Morant all the way at the moment. So beautiful. Thank you for that, Sam. That's of course. If anyone's interested, I pulled those matchups from content that Sam has created on his page and created some of those matchups based on a good analysis, deep analysis on investment into those players. Just a couple more before we do finish up. Of course. Who have you collected in 2021 so far?
I mean, honestly, it's just I don't collect anyone in particular. I have guys of mine that I like. I have cards that I think are cool.
Yeah.
I love Kaboom. I just made a TikTok today. I love Kaboom. I bought a 2013 Derrick Rose Kaboom card that I got real cheap. And then Gary Vee started talking about Kaboom, and that card is now quadrupled in price. I honestly might sell it, as much as I hate to say it, because while I do love it, because it's the first year of Kaboom, that's why it's drawing a higher price. And I could take that money and use it, somewhere else, and potentially use it to, just reinvest it, and just pick up any year of Derrick Rose Kaboom, because I just love Derrick Rose and I just love Kaboom. Doesn't matter if it's 2013 or not, although it has that special premium. It's just players that I like, cards that I think look cool, and I mean that's pretty much it. As far as like investments go, I really like Michael Porter Jr. It's definitely going to be a longer term investment because Denver is not the place for him whatsoever.
Yeah,
I'm really liking Kevin Porter Jr. as well. He's been balling out in the G League, and I'm expecting Oladipo to either get traded or leave in free agency. In which case, Kevin Porter Jr. will be back on an NBA roster most likely. Long term,
just bought a card of his PSA 10 Optic Fanatics. I picked it up dirt cheap. I was like, yeah, why not? Like, I mean, I seen him put up 40 and dunk on some guy in the G League, and I'm like, well, that's far less than what I've seen of KZ Okpala doing, and I've got freaking 55 base prison KZ Okpalas. So he's doing more than what freaking he did, and so I'm like, why would I not buy up some of his cards that are dirt cheap at this current point? I think this is what people need to realize, when you look this far ahead, if you are buying Kevin Porter Jr. right now, right, his floor is at a base. Like, his cards are at a base floor.
Yeah.
Buying him now, there is very, very, very little risk. Very good chance he keeps playing the way he is in the G League. He gets his chance to come up to the NBA and play. And we've seen all it needs is one game to come up, score 20 points. Oh my God, this rookie, we've completely forgotten about him. And then everyone rushes out to buy his cards. And if you were buying him now while he's sitting in the G League, when they're so cheap, it is nearly impossible not to flip it for profit. Nearly impossible, right?
Yep.
The only way you lose money is if he never gets to the NBA and doesn't play.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
And I don't think that's possible. As long as his mentality stays right, and he, I think that's the bit of the issue.
Some of his emotional issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest concern for him. If he can just get his mental health in order, he'll be a very good NBA player, like, for a long time.
He's got that. He's a lefty. He's got that. Lefties intrigue me, man. Just like I was going to ask, you're an Indiana fan. Please tell me you got some Sabonis. He's my boy. I love Sabonis.
Sabonis is a gun, bro.
I unfortunately don't, as much as I like Sabonis. I do have an Oladipo tie-dye out of 25 because actually there's a very special reason that I have that card. And I'll explain it in a second. That's the only real Pacers card I have, and Miles Turner is my guy from Indiana, and then Malcolm Brogdon, and then Sabonis. I just fell in love with both of them before I really fell in love with Sabonis. So it's just I've had a longer relationship with them than I have with Sabonis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like that Victor Oladipo card, Pacers fan, right? And he was a Pacer at the time. But I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Masked Singer. I never heard of it before, and then I saw that he went on the show and he sang a song called Rainbow, and it was amazing. Like, just blew my mind. It was just beautiful. I was like, this is insane. So I went and I looked up his tie-dye card because it's a rainbow effect, right? And I was like, that's what I'm gonna buy because it's got the rainbow. It's Oladipo. I'm a Pacers fan. It holds that much sentimental value to me. So that's the only current Pacers card I think that I have. Maybe I have more that I'm just forgetting about. But at the moment, that's what it's looking like. So
nice. Very nice. We do have the Masked Singer here in Australia. We've obviously branched out from the US. So
yeah, I just hadn't even heard of it until Victor Oladipo went there, and I've never watched it since. So I just wasn't sure if you guys had ever heard of it at all.
I heard of it. I've never watched it. Source is probably he absolutely loves it, I reckon. But
that's your thing, right? Right?
Oh no! Oh, those damn trash TV shows. Oh, they're a waste of They're a waste of time. But I don't watch the Masked Singer for the record.
Yeah. Last one, couple here. Best collect of 2020.
Like the best investment that I made, or the favorite card that I've bought is like
probably. Yeah, you can go best investment, but also your favorite card.
That's a tough one. Favorite card. Actually, it's going to be one that I just recently picked up. I know you won't be able to see it on here, but I picked up this. I was from a group chat that I found. It's this 2013 Carmelo Anthony Refractor 2003 draft patch. It just looks absolutely sick. I just love this. I'll probably hold on to this for a while. I mean, I don't even have that much attachment to Carmelo Anthony, but I love his jump shot. He's got one of the cleanest looking jump shots in the entire NBA, and that card was just too good to pass up. It just looks amazing, and honestly, it was pretty cheap in comparison to the other ones. So I was like, I'll go ahead and pick it up and just hold on to it. I love it. Best investment that I made was probably one of two things: either the Luka Doncic rookie, a Prism-based PSA 10 I bought for $600 before the bubble, and then sold it for $2K at the peak after he dropped his 42-point triple-double with a game winner over the LA Clippers. I think that was to tie the series or to make it 3-2. I'm not completely sure. So I made some really nice profit there, or Bol. I think I think Bol is honestly really talented, and I believed it ever since like before he was drafted. And so I was literally buying his cards for like $1 each, his Prism-based rookies, his pink ices, his National Treasures college stuff. Like I was buying all that for super cheap. And then he had his game in the G League. Stuff exploded. I sold a good amount of it. I sold even more of it later this offseason. And I just made a crap ton of money off of him. At least for my standards, I made a crap ton of money off of his cards. And I still believe in the guy. Once again, I just don't think that Denver really has. I don't think Denver's trying to rebuild and develop these guys as much as they would like, or at least as much as I would like. So I'm kind of hoping that they get moved. Both of them get moved soon, him and MPJ. But they're talented players regardless, and I think that at some point I'll probably buy up some more of his cards and then just hold on to it and sell whenever I get the chance because his stuff is once again pretty cheap. So those are probably the best 2 investments that I've made this year.
Very nice. And the last one, this one's all about you, mate. What's next for Sam Conrad, aka Comrades _sports cards?
Well, I honestly I don't know. That's kind of how I've been throughout this entire process because once again, like I said, I did not plan on becoming Conrad Sports Cards, the sports card 16-year-old kid that tells people about the NBA and about sports cards, and that's what I'm known for, right? That's not what I expected whatsoever. I will be saying that there will be a brand change and a partnership at some point. I don't know if it'll occur when it comes out. It might. I'm not completely sure, but it'll happen within very soon after recording this podcast. And let's just say, there's lions and there's tigers, and maybe I'm joining the herd. Let's just keep it at that. If that gives you guys any hints. So it'll be nice to join them and do some work with them. Because I really like what they're doing, and I think that they're gonna have some major success, and I'm hoping to be a valuable partner with them. As far as like in the long term, because I always like to think super long term. If at some point, sports cards are no longer anywhere near as popular, and I still want to create content, and I'm kind of planning for this already. I can shift my attention more towards sports and basketball because I'm very passionate about those as well. So I can talk more about basketball or at some point football as I do more education on it because that's what I grew up watching. Then I just became an NBA fan, and I can just be known as that whatever, maybe that 20-year-old guy that has a massive card collection but talks about sports and shows off his collection every once in a while, right? Because I don't think that I can be known as Conrad Sports Cards forever or whatever I eventually change my name to. I'll be known as Sam Conrad, right?
Exactly.
So, at some point there'll be some sort of change, but for now, I can't really tell you to say the least. I don't know for sure, but there is a partnership. That's all I can really tell you for now. That's about it.
There you
So
go.
it just the what I take from that is, I'll take it one day at a time and keep creating my content and putting that out, and I'll see where it takes me. Essentially.
Yep, exactly.
I like it. I like it.
Well,
Yeah.
if you are a young male or female listening to this podcast, definitely go. Not just young, but anyone that's in the hobby, go and check out Sam. You are on behalf of both of us. We are. I feel like an old man talking to you, but you've put some life into me, Sam. You definitely have. You're an impressive young man.
You can drink some. You can drink some whatever vodka. You could consume some alcohol, or you can talk to me, and I'll bring that energy right back into your life. I got you.
I love it. You're an impressive young man. Keep up the fantastic work.
Thanks.
We love your stuff, and thank you so much for coming on this podcast. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, let's sign off on another great podcast. Thank you again to Sam, but it's been Dom, Source, and Sam Conrad, aka Comrades _sports cards. Keep living, loving, and breathing all sports. It's double coverage and peace.
Peace out, ladies and gents.
Thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to leave a review on the Apple Podcasting app. Also, follow us on socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Talking all sports, double coverage.